Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. We're continuing on with our acrylic wildflower challenge. Today I think we'll do some, I was looking at all different kinds of flowers. I think we'll do some buttercups and asters. And because I love the asters, I have them out in our house out in Pennsylvania. And, I just love all the different kinds of colors and, that they come in. And they're pretty much almost the same size of flower. You could have the giant buttercup or the smaller one. So we'll paint those. First thing, thank you so much for all the comments that you're adding to the videos, the comments and the likes. We really appreciate those. And I love the discussion. I read all of the comments and answer them. And, if there's stuff that you want to see, tell me what you want to see, what you want to have painted in there, because we paint a large variety of everything here, at the studio. For example, Valerie asked on the last video, she said, can you show glass? Absolutely. I'll probably film that maybe next week or so. I'll put up a little glass vase and some flowers and show you how to paint glass. Glass is something that I used to do for many years in realism and stuff, and so I'll break it all down and we'll do that. Karen asked a really great question. It's on the seascape that I painted here, asking about violet into the coastline. And she says she lives at the beach and doesn't see it all the time, doesn't see violet in the beach. And I didn't. I lived at the beach for over 25 years, and I didn't see it and until I watched another master said, there's violet along the wet sand. And so then I put took a photo of it, put it in a photo spectrometer, and took a look at it. Sure enough, it's a grayed violet right along the wet sand. So I put that photo up with the photo spectrometer, and you can find that on this particular video. So go over and take a look at that into the comments. There's a link on Karen's question, and you just click that and you'll see that photo. It's a mind blower what it does, okay? So if you have those kinds of questions, like I say, I read all the comments. Drop them in the comments down below, and let's take a look at it, okay? Because they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun for me too, okay? Let's have some fun with some of these small things. Now, I got a couple of reference photos. And again, like I've showed you so many times, it's so funny how Windows prints it out and then Photoshop prints it out. Same photo. This one's turned upside down here. Same photo, but, just lighter and more color. So I got to get those balanced or do something at some point in time. These are little violet colored asters, which might be kind of cool, but we could do some blue and some lean towards the red, and little buttercups, all kinds of little buttercups. So we'll start out with some of those today, okay? And I have my 8x10 board here, and let's get right into it. I have my color set out, just a little bit of colors. Hansa yellow, Darulite yellow, yellow oxide, naphtha red light, burnt sienna, pine green, phthalo blue, quinacridone violet, red violet, and my white. This is my normal painting ones that I like for, colors for florals and stuff. 3/4 inch brush to start out most of the background. I think I'll do the asters today with a little number 4 fusion filbert. They'll give that nice rounding little head that they have here to the asters, so I think that'll paint those really nice. If you have a bigger one, like a 6 or so, instead of using the brush on the flat, just turn it slightly and use it on the chisel, and you'll be able to paint those no problem. This is a number 6 fusion flat I think I'll use for the buttercups. So we'll use those. But first, let's just take some water down, and let's get out some of our colors that we might want to use on the asters. Those violets, lighter violets, and some blue violets and light violets, and I'm just going to softly push some of those right into the background. This is my background that I make from my white, a little bit of yellow oxide, and some black, and really nice, generally a nice background color, and it's nice and grayed. And so I like to push some other colors into the background just to break it up a bit. And, you can soften it with your paper towel, put a little water in it and come through. If you have something right here that's a little bit too, I like that, so I'm not going to touch it, but just put a little water in your paper towel and draw through, and you'll take care of it. It'll move it around and it'll soften it out for you. I'm going to take a little yellow, put a few little yellow hits into this also. Colors that you're, out of your flowers, something like that. I move some of those to the background. Sometimes I'll go in move some green. This is all contemporary looks that I like. Plus, it's just a heck of a lot of fun to move these colors and push some of this around. And you can see the buttercups have pretty big, massive, really quite large leaves with them, associated with them. And the asters, not so bad, not too bad. But the so I'm gonna keep my greens here a little bit. I'm going to say understated and very casual for a bit of this. So I think, and I'll just put up some stems here, some stem lines, a little burnt sienna right on the chisel of my big brush here. We'll just push a few of those stem lines out, maybe a few little touches of color. I so like to use like the little corners and flats of the brush. It's just fun to put up that really impressionistic, look to it. Okay. And, get all that started. It's really a lot of fun. Let's go right in to some buttercups. Now, I'm going to start out first with maybe some yellow oxide and Hansa. Now, it'll be a little bit more toned, but yellow, I have a lot movement going in there, and yellow oxide is very opaque, so that'll help me, let's pick out a couple buttercups. That'll help me opaque out my flowers really easy, or pick out some of this background really easy. Now it'll be a little wet. I might pick up some of these colors, and that's okay. We'll opaque it as it dries here. And that's why I like the acrylics. I'll just dry it out. Let's start here with a little buttercup, a couple of little petals. So I usually pick out, and I don't paint perfectly the entire flower. That tends, at least for me, to make them a little stiff. So I start to really get it casual. Let's put it that way. I really start to get it casual after basing a couple of petals. I like it a little bit more casual. Let's base one right up here. Nice bright little thing. As they come all together, some of these petals, 5 petals, and they start overriding each other quite a bit. And so it looks almost just like a round. So there's a couple of them. Let's put maybe another smaller one over here towards the side. Let's just do one like right down here like this, a little angled one maybe right out there like that. That might be kind of neat. A little variety to it here. Let's now go over towards our asters, and we'll take some of this violet and blue, this nice red, violet, and blue here. And let's start putting these in. Let's grab one out to here. Look at how they turn. See how they turn in all different kinds of directions. And here I am about to start that with my flat, and I should probably flip over to the brush I said I was going to use. The little filbert here. We'll push that together. And let's we'll put one a little bit larger here. Now before I go make all of the petals, I'm just gonna lightly, because you can see you don't see individual petals like sometimes you do on the daisies. So I'm just gonna come through like this and put some of that in. And let's see, we'll drop one right here like that. We'll maybe make one coming down here, maybe slightly on an angle. I like to, I do what I call rock and roll my flowers, so they pick up some different angles. And let's put a smaller one, maybe right up back here as well, right back up there like that. So we'll get a couple, maybe 3 of each, maybe some other little colors, movements back up over here like that onto the side. So it gives us a nice little setup of our painting there so far. Now we'll go in, grab a fresh paper towel here. Let's go in and start some of our centers. Now the buttercups have yellow, green centers. So let's push some of that pine green, maybe a little bit of Hansa and Darulite into that. Here, push a bit of that color into those, maybe just a bit. We'll do this several times. But Okay, so then on the other ones we have yellow to yellow reddish kind of centers that can have here. So I think I'll start out with the darker colors. That's normally what I'll do, is I'll start out with a slightly darker color, the shadowing colors. And now that doesn't mean I'm, don't add them again later. I usually do several times. So I'll do like a warm burnt sienna here, and maybe a little red violet into that, to the lower side here, little red violet, so we get a nice variation. Sometimes I'll take and use that red violet to pull out and help some of the shadows. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's take a little red violet, little quinacridone violet. This is a cooler of the color, so let's just go ahead and pull some of this out this way on these little asters here, to start a light and shadow side as well here. And I haven't shown, I don't think I've shown that to you. I do this quite a bit on flowers, especially if I'm going to do a stroke flower or stroke petals up on top here. And you can see I want to keep it very loose because it's going to overpaint here. Let's just push a little bit of that color out to there. And your job as the artist is to always create some harmony. So even if your little buttercups don't have those kinds of colors, put a little bit of it in. Don't always paint, and this is why I don't always copy photos and a lot of things I do, because a photo doesn't always give you the ultimate harmony that you need to add as an artist. So I'll take a little bit of these blues and these violets and just add it especially into those yellows. And of course the little asters will carry yellow centers, so that'll help them. Okay, all right, so here on the asters, you can see that, on the buttercups, there's really, you do get some lights, in there, but there's really not a tremendous amount of contrast color. So we're going to do some bright and some hue shifting. That's one reason why I want 3 yellows out here. So let's just hue shift over the light side here. More yellow, maybe a little dark-eyed yellow, and then we'll let this come back down towards the more toned colors over here. That'll give us some difference, and then we'll add some light colors into it as well. But it'll start, I start thinking about maybe even using a little different color. So let's push some light color in here onto this side, and let these little buttercups, so light colors up here, and then a little more toned colors towards the front. We'll even grab some real light color here and some light. Now I'm stroking it right now with the little filbert. That's working pretty nice. So I'll just go ahead and do it. But the little filbert gives you a rounded edge, and so you just be aware of that. So you might move your strokes a little closer sometimes if you want to square off the petal. Let's just pull some of this down like that. Give a little lost and found edge there. Like that. Here, pull this down. And pull this across, put a little light, let it fade away there like that. Kind of a pretty little color. Let this just kind of fade away. We'll let these maybe a nice light little edge here. A little bit of Hansa. Light little edge. And just some of this, just a few streaks or a few marks of movement, but nothing really too much on the petal. I like little marks of movement, and you can you can soften those later if you want. Let's put a bit of a nice light edge. So I always kind of find one part of the flower here, and let's find a little petal right over here out of that really kind of directs the side of the flower. Then just some little things out here that suggest the petals are there, but don't really do too much. Maybe a found edge right here. Nice little edge, and then it fades away. And one of the things I always tell my flower painters in the classes and stuff is always let a loss to a found edge happen through a petal, not on it from a petal to petal. So in other words, you wouldn't find both edges here and then nothing here. Let it go from lost to found through the width of a petal, and that gives you a smoother looking flower. And so a little less light. So here's a petal with 2 found edges. So I wouldn't leave a lost to a found. See, that petal just looks strange sitting out there by itself. So I'd put another found edge and then let it go lost. Lift the pressure, let it go lost out over here, just falling down in there. And see, that gives you a better, smoother transition to your little petals on your flowers. So always choose, your lost and found petals pretty carefully. That's what I do. And I usually, as I'm working through the petal, working through the flower, do the lost and found through a petal, not on a petal. Now I'm going to add some, I love this Darulide. I'm going to add some of that right into that, build up just a little more color, a little yellow ox, a little Hansa in there too, nice bright. Slowly building a little bit more, changing the tones here just a bit onto those petals. And I won't completely paint them here. Won't completely, finish them all off. Not yet. Let's go over here. Rinse some of that yellow out pretty good out of your brush because you're going to go over to its complement here, which is over towards its violets, and we don't want to, reduce down the violet too much. Let's take some quinacridone, some light here, and let's make some of the pretty light little petals here. Nice little strokes, combining them, just lift off just a bit as you're coming into that center there. Build them up, overlap some of them. That's what makes them pretty. Overlap the light side. Let's add a little bit more of the blue and the violet to this and you might want to go back and stroke over one of those, but then slowly let the color start to head over to the violets and lose the edge a bit. Let's go over maybe just a touch more blue over here. Then go back, lighten up again as you come back over to this side and let that come through. So you get a nice, pretty little color change. Let's do that one more time here. Go a little more violet, step off to the side here, a little more of the quinacridone violet, touch of the other violet, but let's go a little bit lighter. Wipe some of that extra color out of my brush and pick up just a bit, like there's a little bit of a white there. I can pick up a bit on the edge, turn that brush, and that gives me a little bit more of a found edge there. And we'll just restroke some of these a couple times here. And pull that in and just let that kind of fade away. That's kind of a pretty little bit. Let's go back, a little more toned. Back up off over here. We'll put a few light strokes. Maybe let this one go a little bit more to the blue as it fades over to that side over there. We'll pick up more light. We'll stroke it again and pick up more light. Okay, we won't leave it that lost out there. We'll pick up some more. Let's go back over. Let's lighten up this side, which is going right towards our center of interest here, which is the center of the composition. Slowly darken it down. Pick up a little more dark. Here a little bit more dark. Over here go more blue, more towards the other violets here. Let that color change. Let's get a little bit of the red violet in there, or the quinacridone violet. A little lighter right here. Pull some out. Make a nice variation to the color. Now, you can, since we're painting acrylic, you can come back in there and tint those and, bring in some other colors and stuff. We could actually, let these go a little bit lighter as well. But, and we'll do some more of that. But let's go in and reset some of the centers. A little violet, little burnt sienna. Reset some of those beautiful centers. And to help get some of that interest and make sure my finger's kind of clean, pull in and out a bit here, especially down to the shadow side here. Pull some in and out just a bit. Okay. And let's go in and work. I might even take my small little flat here. with some green and some, I'm starting to think of contrast. So some of my pine green, let's cool it off with a bit of the red violet, and let's push in before we put on the final lights and darks of these petals here. Let's push in some, see, and I don't mind hitting it and painting into it. Painting back and forth and losing edges and stuff just adds so much interest to your painting. Don't be afraid of doing that. For many years, I was afraid of doing that, and that just kept my paintings kind of stiff. And so I started to, paint my backgrounds out into it a bit, and I started to like my paintings a heck of a lot more as I painted into them a bit. So we'll go ahead and paint some color, and see, that just helps those flowers just pop off a bit here, as they're not competing against some of that movement that I established into the background there. And we'll push some around this little guy out here, and you can transparent it up, grab some of the other greens here. We're going to want to add some more greens, but put a little bit of that green in between. Let it go out beyond. Make sure you don't make a square. I'm kind of squared up here just a bit, and so I'll drag some of that green right down here like this. Some of these other colors right down so that my composition falls down a little bit. Let's lighten that up to a nice pretty yellow green. Some Hansa yellow, some pine green, and a little bit of white. Let's put in some light strokes. A few light strokes of color here. Nice light yellow green. I always tell my students, the leaves occupy the majority of the largest areas in a painting. They're the largest part of the flowers. Well, except for some varieties or not. But, and so you get a lot of interest in your painting by making sure that your greens, you vary your greens. And that was something that I really didn't do for a long time in my paintings, and now I do. And it adds just so much more, interest to your paintings, just to get some of those different greens out there and into your paintings. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I got a little bit of dark for some of the contrast, and see, you can pop out. Always look for that dark contrast. Let's put a little deeper, darker contrast right in here like this, and you can see how it's going to lift and play right between those two flowers, see? So, and you can come back, toss in a little bit more, paint back just a touch of your lighter greens, push that all through. We're painting impressionistic, so we can do all this real fun stuff, okay? That we can do. Let's go back in, grab some of our yellows, Hansa and yellow and white. Let's go with quite a bit more white this time, and we'll reset this nice light this time, not over the whole thing, over the edges here. Pull those back through. Some of the buttercups have like a little dip in the petal there in the center, and so you can do that just by making the strokes on the sides, the found edges here, a little bit larger, and then let them come back in just a little shorter, and then that'll make that nice little dip there. Let's put another little found edge, maybe a bit of water as your paint dries up. Don't forget to feed it a little water. It gets thirsty. Let's just add a bit, maybe an edge or two out here. We'll let that just kind of fade down and go right into those, maybe even just pull one across here. Something, I just want it lost here. Just want that lost right in there. Don't want it to overtake, and we'll put that aster right up there, right up on top of it. Let's take some of those again, those two. Vary the color a little light, little white here, right on this edge. Boy, that's a lot of paint on there, Dave. I like good thick paint. Let's drop that edge in. Nice clean found edge there, and look at how that petal just really pops now with contrast, see? So I slowly build this contrast. I don't try to do it all at once, you know, and I slowly build the contrast here. And that's one reason why, another one of the reasons why I like the you know, painting with acrylics now, being an acrylic artist, is that I let all of this dry and I can stroke this next without picking it up. I always have. There's some people who don't have that problem, but I always had that problem of just constant. If it was wet, I'd constantly pick it up again. And, you know, it just moved the color when I didn't want to, or my colors would disappear, especially whites. I'm just going to add a few other little touches of some colors back through there. Like there's other little things, little edges of blossoms and stuff out there. That's pretty nice. Let's put just a bit more light right there and let that just kind of fade away right there. Okay, so those look pretty good so far. I like little fractured edges and found edges and stuff. You can bring out some, for example, some diarylite here, stroking it out to brighten up that little yellow center if you want. Some of this, and yellow, Hansa yellow will work as well. That helps you get it a little brighter, but allow some of that green to show through and some of that other violets and stuff. And see, this is what I like, because this white is just about dry, so I'm putting on that color pretty heavy, and so I'm getting a nice variation of color and strokes and stuff because the underlying tones now are pretty much dry. So just drop some of that in. I like that little bit of those yellows, different yellows coming out there. So you see, you build that flower and you build that flower. And let's go in, grab a bit more of our lighter violets and blues here, and really kind of head just a touch more to the white side. It doesn't have to be exactly the same color. Matter of fact, you want it a little bit of variation. Always paint for color variation as you're putting on these layers. Let's pick up a little bit of light. Let's see what this looks like. See, that's kind of a pretty color. Maybe even lighter yet with just what I had in my brush and more white. And let's just slide in and out of that angle there. Let some of that kind of pull in to the center, pull right into the center. Let some of this green pull in. That'll give you some look of transparency, translucency of the petals, which asters really aren't translucent, but boy, we can paint them that way. Let's just put out a few angled strokes here, a little color here. Really kind of pretty. I'm going to have to do some, I think it's time also, maybe next week, go back to some nice white kind of flowers too. Paint some variations of whites. That's just kind of pretty. Let some of that color just dance around in there. Let's go back lighter right out here. Pick up some of those other colors there. Bit of those. Let some of that just kind of fade away. Nice light though. Let's go a little lighter right over here. A little bit more found edge to those. That pulls. Let's put a nice found edge right here like this, pulling back this way. That'll keep us going right towards our center of interest, and let the outside there just kind of fade away. Let's pull that light, a little bit more white, light edge right up here. We'll go right up over that yellow a bit, and then let this petals kind of turn and fall down there. So you don't have to do perfect petals on all of your flowers. Let some of them just fade away here. Let some of them just kind of fade away. Just colors, movements here. That gives you a lot of really nice interest. Okay, let's take the corner. Now we could use the flat, or we could use just the corner here of this little filbert. Some yellow oxide. Just kind of tap it around just a little bit down here on the shadow side. As a matter of fact, hit it with your finger so you get a nice lost side there. To me, the flowers really come to life when you start these centers. And we'll come around, just touch that in there just a bit. Let's touch in a little more here onto that side. That's kind of nice. Let's go over to, let's model together some Hansa and some of that Darulite. Touch back up over here to the light side. Just tap around the edge a bit here. Tap around these a bit here. Go, just let it fade away onto the other side over there. Okay. Fun little flowers. Just a couple little touches on that one. Touch that edge. Now we could go add a little bit more contrast, Hansa and some white. Keep that completely pointed here towards the center of interest because it's kind of powerful here. So right towards your center of interest, right towards the center of the composition there. Just tap those around. You can, if you get too much, just take a little burnt sienna. You could use burnt sienna and a bit of red violet as well. Tap through, gives you a nice, nice shadow side there. Again, reveal some of that. And if you take that burnt sienna, a bit of red violet, nice contrasting color, you can increase the contrast here into your centers, which really does add quite a bit more to your flowers there. See, it just gives them an extra little pop, a little punch there. Sometimes I'll leave that dark sit on there like that. Sometimes I'll touch a little, maybe, Darulite or something over it to set that dark, in just a touch more. All depends. There was a beautiful painter, 19th century Victorian painter, floral painter, Eugene Pettit, and I loved how he would put little sparks of light on top of the dark yellow or dark side of the flower. Just gave it just wonderful life. Now let's take some Hansa and some green, touch that right into the centers of our little buttercups here, and hopefully we've left a bit of that shadowing color there, that center shows up. But you can see their centers have little bits of green and stuff, but boy, as they get older, it gets a little yellow, and they get more of the sepals, not sepals, but the stamens and stuff go up a bit higher, and lighter yellow. So we might go a little bit lighter yellow, Hansa and white here, more Hansa and white here together, right in like that. Just kind of finding, boy, don't you hate it when you forgot where you were on your palette here? It's right here, I think. We put a little bit of that Hansa and white right up there. You could make little stamen and stuff like that, but I'm just going to keep it kind of simple today, I think. Here, we'll just build that light a couple times, especially around this one. This is our center of interest guy right there. And I do like that. I could put a bit more of a Hansa yellow right in here in the mid-ground. That would really pop that yellow. Boy, howdy, that does. Pops that yellow, just a bit more of that flower. And if you repeat that, take a little white and that reset that edge again. See, you get this. If you paint them again, with some flowers, I don't paint them multiple times because that starts to make them stiff, and they will start to get stiff if you do it too many times. But if you're constantly varying the tone of the color, they don't get as stiff. So keep that in mind, that does work. You take a bit of that light You can streak through just a touch, maybe edge here. But you can keep them really simple. I mean, you could stop, or you can make them a little more complicated. But it's just a fun little, 30-minute painting here. And now, if your asters look a little flat here, one of the things you do after you set all that light and everything is I'll come back with slightly darker color here, and sometimes just use the edge of my brush and just push through like this, just to break up some of the look of the total stroked light petal. So I just break it up a bit, just a little chisel. Like right here is a perfect area to pull some of the dark out like that. Here, just pull it out and blur it a bit. Let's take a bit of all of our violets. Make this just a touch. I'm going to add just a touch of extender. I'm adding it not to blend. I'm adding it to shear, so it slides more. See how it slides? I just like how that extender slides, and that allows me to slide that edge of that flower over there quite a bit more. I like to take some of that kind of color and push it in for harmony, so I might just lighten that up just a bit. I always look for harmony. Even though the flowers in the photos don't show it, I like to push a little bit of that in there for harmony. So here's a little bit more for harmony into those flowers. Pulls them all together. Kind of fun. And yeah, we'll touch a little bit more yellow and light. Tap that out a bit here. You could streak out little pine green and some of those yellows from the center, pull it out just a bit, soften some of that violet and give you a little more contrast right in through there. I really like that. I do like to overstate some contrast, like on the little asters here. Like restate a darker than what you would see into the painting like that, and just kind of go right around here, push in and out, but leave that dark right around the center, and see how much more interest that gives. Now you can do the same type of thing on your buttercups too, but see, just leaving that little dark right around there like that, that's a very artistic thing. It's not an observational thing that you see on the flowers, because you don't see it on the flowers. You don't see that on the flowers at all. But this is an artistic thing that a lot of impressionists like myself, when I paint a lot of impressionism, this is what we would do just to kick that contrast one time. There, just boom. And, we might do that. If we don't have it with a yellow, maybe a little maybe a little yellow oxide, some of our yellows, a bit of that red violet to help get that darkness, but maybe just a bit of that into our buttercups here, just like that, to get that final little, look at the extra little dose of contrast that it gives. Maybe a touch of burnt sienna, but I like that violet, and that violet plays against the yellow, and the violet is really cool. The burnt sienna wouldn't play quite as much because it's warm. It's warm going up against warm. This is cool with that little bit of violet there. And I took out too much yellow with my big finger there. So we'll go fix that back up. So put a little more yellow. Let's opaque it up with a bit of white. Take some of that out. And you can always go back and reset an edge right up over the top of something like that with a little light like that. But see, that little violet just kind of travels through and works pretty good. So now the last thing I'll do is maybe take some of let's just push a little bit more yellow through the painting here. So we, push a little more color through it. Through some of this background and stuff here. just a little more interest. I'm watching the flowers. I don't want to take away from the flowers here, but I would like to get just a bit more. And this is where I always love that big brush. Just come in there with your big brush. Push some of that around. There. That works pretty good. Sometimes I'll take some of my greens here and just kind of pull those down. Let's just kind of pull all of that down there. A little bit of the violets through there like that. Just, move the color out from it. And let's grab our little flat. I do love painting with the flat. And just like give the impressions of maybe a little stuff here. That's the best way to say it. It's just stuff going on there like that. Maybe a little bit there. A little stuff over here. And then I think we'll call it just I'm looking just for color moving out, see? And the color moves your eye out further and it keeps that all around. But makes kind of a pretty fun little thing there. We try to do it, in 30 minutes or around there sometimes, all depends. But don't always get locked in to that photo, right? Don't get locked into that photo. Good rules of contrast, light, dark, warm, cool. So drop, and doesn't that last little bit of cool really change that? And I can, really accentuate that a little bit more, especially in that center one, just going to some of that red violet and dropping that right there into the center. Now, you don't see that at all in those buttercups. But that's where you're the artist, right? You're the artist, and you've got to utilize your rules to not only create harmony, but also create contrast and interest. So you don't always just copy that photo. So you have these, and and I pick asters and buttercups here because those are good complement colors. So the asters and the buttercups are two complementary colors working against each other. And then in good harmony, you cross those tones back and forth between those flowers. Not so much that they all look the same, but just enough to grab that harmony. And one thing that's hard about color theory, I think, is that you'd sit there and you'd say, okay, that gives them good harmony, but they're also the furthest away from the wheel, so it's also getting ultimate contrast. In other words, yellows here, violets here, and that's giving ultimate contrast. But it's also harmony. It's harmony because they're complements. The two colors go together. But being furthest across the wheel will also give them contrast. So it's a little hard to understand sometimes, but you work it all together. It makes a pretty little painting. You could soften out the violet and stuff if you want, or vice versa. But I do like doing found edges, the lost edges and stuff. I just think it just makes fun paintings. Okay, thanks very much for joining me. And like I say, would you do us a favor and hit the comments down there? Tell us some stuff that you'd like to see painting. Tell us what kind of things that you'd like to see in the future, because I'm doing a lot of seascapes, I'm doing a lot of landscapes, I'm doing a lot of animals and portraits and stuff and other things. And if you want to see some of that stuff, let us know. Okay, and by all means, please hit that like button. Okay, that helps our videos. That with what we do here at YouTube, they distribute the videos. They only show it if a lot of people, which makes sense. If you like something, then they're going to want to show it to more people because people liked it. So, that would help us out immensely if you just hit that like button and drop in a comment, and then we'll get more movement of our videos out, and then we'll have the ability to add more. Okay? Thanks a lot. I'll see you next week. I'll figure out, let's go white. Let's go back to white next week. Okay. See you then.